our starting points from our shoulder, our armhole length, and our bust length or bust point. You also take your under bust length from your shoulder to your under bust and mark out the points. Next, you take your bust span, divide by 2. That's the measurement from one nipple point to the other nipple point, divide by 2. Mine is 8, so I'm going to be working with 4. So you're going to mark it on your bust length down to your under bust and your armhole and connect the lines. Next, we'll take our neckline. I'm making use of 5 inches for the length because I don't want it exposed. I also went ahead to mark out my bust span divide by 2 on the neck length, the neck depth, and I connected it down to my under bust. Next, I'll be taking the distance between my bust point and my under bust, and I'm going to take it round, making a circle with dotted points. Next, we are going to be determining how high the demarcation between our two busts is going to be. We are going to determine the space between the two busts, your two boobs. So now to do that, from your bust point, from your bust length, you are going to go up by 2.5 inches. Now it's not fixed. You can decide on whatever inch you want to make use of, whether 2 inches or 1.5. Then from that point, you take 0.5 inch or 1/4 of an inch. Note that whatever you're taking there is going to be multiplied by 2. So if you take 0.5 inches, by the time you open it up, it's going to be 1 inch. Now from that point, you're going to make a curve with your armhole curve down to your under bust. That's towards the center front. Then on the right hand side of your cup, you go out from that 4 inch you took round with dotted lines. You go out by 0.5 inch because your boobs is full at the side. So you take your French curve and make another curve at the side. Go ahead to connect it with a straight line up. Now the shape of your upper cup is dependent on your neck depth and the number of inches you took from your bust points up. You make curves connecting them like so. Next, to go ahead to do our over bust and under bust tightening by taking 0.5 inches on the left and right hand side of the line we made for our bust span, divide by 2. So this is the same way we create our darts, just to give it shape above and below, to give it a proper fitting. So making use of your curve, you connect it towards your bust point, but move away from your bust point so it won't have a sharp edge. So if you're making use of your curve, you'll be able to achieve that. And if you're not making use of your curve, just try and create your dart legs in such a way that your at the end of the day you won't have a pointed edge. Next, to take our bust circumference, divide by 4, mark it out and add 2-inch allowance at the side. So I made this particular corset dress for a pregnant lady, so I didn't take note of my under bust circumference to ensure that it's not too tight. So on my waist length, I took my waist circumference divided by 4 plus 1 inch for these darts that we took out. Then I added 2 inches, making 3 inches. Then you go ahead to create your shape That's connecting your final lines from the allowance with your French curve. Now for the yoke, I'm going to be marking out a neck of 3 by 4. That's the wideness is going to be 4 inches and with a depth of 3 inches. After doing that, we create a shoulder slant. Then you curve out your armhole. Now for the yoke, I'm going to be making use of 1.5 inch for the wideness. At the end of the day, I'm going to add my 0.5 inches to my pattern for the lining. So after curving out, you can curve out your that yoke part whatever to whatever shape you desire. I want you to take note of the way I'm cutting out the pieces, separating the pieces. Now this third portion is going to be useless. It's not part of our work. So I'm marking it out to let you know. Let's just make that clear difference that we are cutting that out. I always advise marking out your cups to ensure that you don't make mistake when joining them. You also mark out your lining fabric. So what I'm doing here is adding my shoulder allowance, my shoulder seam allowance. So after putting the pieces together, this is what you get. Watch out for the sewing parts.